I'm Shane Phillips, the CEO of the Phillips Group, and we're here at the HR Summit and Expo, the #1 HR event in the Middle East, and I'm here with Gwen Dunne, who is the head of People and Culture at HRTV, and David Henry, who is the Chief of Staff at HRTV as well. Welcome. Welcome. Nice to have you. So you're a startup bank, which is, you don't see every day banks starting up, so congratulations. And you see HR and agility as part of your competitive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started up in Abu Dhabi around 2 years ago. We've been on kind of that journey ever since then, doing everything a startup does, trying to build out the product proposition and put in place the governance and the policies. And something we quickly realized when we were going through that development process was, you know, in this part of the world, attracting talent is very important. It's a different culture, it's a different way of life. And we were also keen to bring people from different backgrounds. So it's not always career bankers we weren't interested in, because we're interested in new ideas, we're interested in trying to be agile and do things differently. So it was, how could we build an internal culture, internal ways of working, and an employee brand that would appeal to these people from different walks of life. And that's kind of where we looked at Gwen and her experience as an organizational psychologist, and how could she come into HRTV and help us kind of fill that proposition out and make that more real.
Okay, and so what are you doing to achieve that agility? What have you done differently? Is it an org structure thing? Is it a systems thing? Is it where and what have you done to achieve that?
So we've brought together different methodologies. So basically, I'm a Gallup strength coach, so we came in to build a strength culture. But the culture, when I came in, it had already been developing for how long?
About 18 months.
About 18 months. Now, even at the 18-month point, if you have an organization that's been together for that long, you can even have things that are tripping you up already. You can start to have legacy behaviors. And the really exciting thing was, when I came in, I met all these different people from different backgrounds with different specialities, whether it was being agile, whether it's some work we're doing on OS Canvas, which I'm sure you can mention about in a moment. And I was given full creative reign. Like, suddenly I was given full creative reign and just said, you can do whatever you want with this organization, just make it work, make our people happy, and make sure that our people are performing and that we're moving quickly. So that's what I did. I came in and began to redesign the organization, but with the team.
So when you redesigned it, what did you do differently from the traditional model or what we would expect?
I think when you look at traditional incumbent banking, the word silos is often used in different industries, but I think banking, it's heavily applicable. I mean, you have very robust and defined departmental boundaries, very strict handovers, and you have principles like the 3 lines of defense, which, whilst very important from a risk management perspective, they erect these boundaries between different teams. And so it's a case of, how can we create true cross-functional working where we give people the tools and the facilities to kind of work in a different way and come together in a different way to allow us to deliver our products and services. So, as Gwen mentioned, there's a methodology around an OS canvas, so the operating system canvas, for thinking about an organization differently. Because if you imagine the traditional org chart as we all know it now, you know, it was first came on, I think, about 100 years ago for a manufacturing company. And whilst that's all well and good for a manufacturing company 100 years ago, perhaps a digital bank that's launching in Abu Dhabi in 2019, maybe we could try and do some things differently. So it's creating teams that focus on specific function, rather than, you know, I have an arbitrary operations person in my name, in my title, but I'm working on payments, and payments is part of a client experience around how we as a bank deliver payments to our clients. So why doesn't he work with the compliance officer who's also doing all the screening work? And why doesn't he work with a front-end dev that's defining how the client experiences that? So why would we put him in an operations team that sits on a different part of the floor with a different group, rather than let's try and focus and make sure these people are all working together, because at the end of the day, they own how this client experience actually functions within our bank.
So you don't have an org structure, so to speak?
It's evolving, and I think that's the most important aspect about this. It has to evolve continually. We didn't sit down and get all the boxes on Visio and say, well, this reporting line makes sense there and that, you know. And as a bank, obviously there's regulations around that you have to make sure certain things are signed off in a certain way, and you have to respect that. But that's sign off. So how we work together is very, very different. So what we did initially is we dragged some key minds out of the business into one room. I locked them in there for 3 days, and we started with a blank piece of paper basically, and just said, how do we redesign how we work together, how we behave together, how we communicate, how we structure ourselves, how we delegate authority, and how do we do it differently? Because now organizations, they're all trying to they're pulling themselves apart, they're making mass redundancies, they're cutting things up because they're panicking because they weren't agile, they weren't resilient, they weren't ready for change. So the point of that is that if you have an organization structure, and this is why organization structures haven't changed for so many years, is that this is what an org chart looks like. That's it. No, that's not how. That's not an organization. An organization is a living and breathing organism that has to evolve and has to evolve rapidly. But you have to continually keep breaking yourselves down and rebuilding yourselves up. So at the moment, when we look at how we're structuring ourselves, it's in constant fluid motion. So we're constantly looking, okay, so the business is growing in this direction, this team is growing with this skill set. How will that now change? It doesn't have to be a fixed way of working.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Gwen, for sharing your insights on this exciting area of agility.
Thank you.
It was great to hear you. Thanks so much, David. So that was Gwen Dunne, the Chief People and Culture Officer at AGTB, and David Henry, the Chief of Staff at AGTB, sharing their insights on how they're creating an agile company. I'm your host, Shane Phillips from the Phillips Group, and we're here at the HR Summit and Expo, the #1 HR event in the Middle East.